Okay, live stream is starting now. So watch your mouths, gentlemen. Feel like I have to say that every time. Okay, yeah, it's live. Everything looks like it is connected and streaming. I can see myself on the Facebook feed as well as you two handsome guys. So ready to rock. So guys, we're here with our personal top agent in Gulf Shores, Alabama, but also the top agent in the entire MLS of Gulf Shores, Jonathan Lazarino, a fellow Mississippian. And obviously he doesn't live there now. He lives in Gulf Shores. But today we're going to talk about buying properties in the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Fort Morgan area. How's it going, Jonathan?
Hey, Avery, it's going well, and I'm excited to talk to everybody about Gulf Shores and kind of go over why I'm excited about this market in the short term and the long term, and help familiarize everybody with the area as well.
Awesome. Well, let's go. And we should be getting questions. The longer we're live, the more questions we'll have. So you just take off and I'll watch the questions.
All right, sounds great. Okay, everybody. So hope everybody's doing well today. I'm going to share my screen and kind of go over the map of the area here. Okay. Okay. Can y'all see my map? Okay.
Yep. All good.
All right. So this is the area we're going to be discussing right here. So from Orange Beach, there's the Florida-Alabama line, all the way back to Fort Morgan. Now, if we zoom out, just kind of to give you a frame of reference on where it's located, you've got Mobile right here. You've got New Orleans over here. You've got Destin right here. And then here's the area we're talking about right here. So geographically, I think it's located in a very great location. If you're driving anywhere, which it meets Avery's criteria as a drivable market very, very well. If you're driving anywhere, of course, within the state of Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, even all the way from Texas, you get a lot of people driving in from there because it's, in my opinion, the first beach that you would come to with Florida quality beaches. And what I mean by that, it's got white sandy beaches and it's just a beautiful area. But anyway, we'll kind of zoom in a little bit, and a couple of things I'm really excited about that are going on right now that why I think is such a great long-term investment as well, anywhere in this area. You've got a couple of things I wanted to point out before we go into it. The Jack Edwards Airport is expanding by 2023, which, you know, it's been a very strong market as a drivable market for a long time, 25 plus years. But this airport is going to allow people to fly directly into Gulf Shores from all around the U.S. by 2023. And that's going to really help, I think, especially in the snowbird season, people coming from the north. So that airport should be expanded by 2023. They're currently negotiating with some commercial airlines. Then another thing I wanted to point out, so you've got the Alabama Gulf Coast Zoo. And if you come right up here, you see Tropic Falls at OWA. OWA is a great amusement park. It's got some amazing roller coasters and rides, and one roller coaster that my wife was brave enough to get on and I was not. But we really love this area. There's shopping and also some great rides, and the new indoor water park they just completed. I'm really pumped about because that'll be open year round, whereas Waterville, USA, and some of these other attractions are closed during the off season. You'll have OWA that'll be available year round for those months that aren't as the peak months around here. So I think that's going to do nothing but help, and it's enjoyable to go to. So now let's zoom in a little bit. So when people talk about Gulf Shores, they're normally kind of lumping in Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, and Fort Morgan. I'd like to divide them up into three different areas. Well, first of all, Orange Beach is a different city than Gulf Shores. There's different regulations, and also they're different. They feel different, and you kind of have to look for different things in each area. So we'll start out with what I call the main strip of Gulf Shores, right here by the hangout. So if you're coming down Foley or Gulf Shores Parkway, McKenzie 59, you're going to hit the Hangout. Now, this is the most popular public beach access. The Hangout's a historic bar and restaurant. It's been around since the 50s, and it kind of divides what we call East Beach and West Beach. So this is what most people will think of when they're talking about Gulf Shores. Now, East Beach, the cool part about East Beach is it's very small. You've got the state park right here and then West Beach over here. But most of these areas most of the houses here are very walkable to many restaurants and bars. There's also public access points at the end of each of these streets, so very walkable to the beach. And these roads right here are not very difficult to cross. So even if you're not Gulf front, you can still get to the beach easily. So that's a really cool part about East Beach. Now, as you go to the west over here to West Beach, you have restaurants and bars as you're close to the Hangout. But as you go, and as far as regulations go, 2nd Avenue and South is where you're allowed to short-term rent, which, as you see in East Beach, it ends on 2nd Avenue. So that's pretty easy. As you get to West Beach, you may see some properties over here on 3rd or 4th Avenue that would be amazing short-term rentals if they were allowed to short-term, but they're not. So you cut off right here, 2nd Avenue. Now, there are some exceptions. As you get west of 6th Street here, all this is eligible to be short-term rented. So even though that's 8th Street, there are some short-term rentals there as well. Now, West Beach, you may have heard about West Beach. It's kind of a very hot area right now in the Gulf Shores market. And the reason being there's many reasons, but Little Lagoon is to the north of West Beach. So it's a kind of unique area where you have really cool views of the north, from the north of the lagoon. And then you also have great views, obviously, of the Gulf to the south. And here's where the Gulf feeds into the lagoon on Lagoon Pass here. Now, the lagoon is a unique body of water. You have all kinds of water sports you can do, great fishing. So in certain cases, especially as you get to the west side of Lagoon Pass right here, you have certain houses that may have access to the lagoon that are lagoon front. And also they may have easy access to the beach. So these can be some really good value buys on the lagoon front, even though you're not paying, they're still expensive, but you're not quite paying first tier, meaning direct Gulf front prices, and still hitting some really good numbers there. Now, one thing I just want to point out quickly is that when I say if you have access, I'm meaning if you have deeded beach access. That's very important to distinguish that from if you have to use a public access point, because if you are, north of, if you're on the lagoon front and you don't have deeded beach access, you may have to go a pretty long way to get to a public access. But that's something I can help you distinguish pretty quickly, but deeded beach access is great. Anyway, going to the far west of West Beach, it ends right here. So it doesn't circle back to Fort Morgan, which I'll get to in a minute. It ends right here, and Laguna Key is just a very high-end luxury community, even as far west as you can go on West Beach. These rent very well also. Anyway, okay, so that's kind of an overview of the Gulf Shores area. Now we'll come across here to Orange Beach. So dividing Orange Beach and Gulf Shores, you've got the Gulf State Park, which is a beautiful state park. I'm actually very glad that they're not ever going to develop these. You won't see any STRs here, which is a good thing because this is an attraction as well. People love the Gulf State Park. You can do tours. You can rent bikes or even motorized bikes and kind of ride around. They have alligator tours and all kinds of cool stuff to do in the park. So anyway, as you get to the east side of the park, you get into Orange Beach. Now, Orange Beach has a little different feel than Gulf Shores. It was developed after Gulf Shores was, so you won't see as many houses built in the 80s. There's a lot of houses that are a little older here, especially on East Beach. So there's a lot of shopping centers, a lot of cool stuff to do in Orange Beach. One thing I'll say right off the bat, the restrictions are very different in Orange Beach. So you have 180-day minimums throughout the city. So you can't short-term rent most houses in Orange Beach, except if you're south of Perdido Boulevard. So all the first tiers are good to go. Now, also, there's a lot of planned unit developments that override that are not regulated by the city that you can short-term rent as well. Here's one right here. Actually, I see Shipwreck. That's one of my past clients. And that this area right here is called Park's Edge because it's on the edge of the park and you have access to it. This is one of the many developments they have here that are allowed to be short-term rented. Now there's a lot of condos here in Gulf Shores. I mean, in Orange Beach, that do very well numbers wise. And one thing I wanted to point out too is as you keep going, you'll hit the Florida-Alabama line. So there's a bar and restaurant and shopping center and all kinds of stuff, yacht club right here called Floribama, which is very popular. I would venture to say it's one of the more popular bars in the Southeast. And it's there's events going on year round. For instance, this Phoenix 10 complex right here, there's many condos that'll do well, but this being right by the Floribama, you will see a bump in rental numbers for the Phoenix 10 in particular. You're literally next door. And anyway, that's just a very popular area. I just wanted to point out. Unfortunately, you'll see Ono Island and a lot of these areas here that are also beautiful, but you can't short-term rent throughout those areas. Okay, so now we're going to go to another area to the far west. So this area is going to be a lot different than Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. So if you go back to the hangout and you go north and then you take a west, if you go west onto Fort Morgan Road, you're going to go on the north side of that lagoon I was just talking about, and keep going past it. So that you may see some houses on the north side of the lagoon. I personally would recommend, most of that is going to be restricted from short-term rental, one of the few areas in Fort Morgan. And even if it's not, it is drivable to the beach access. And you will see a hidden numbers while the price points are still high on the north side. So I would recommend investing on the south side of the lagoon if you can, because of the easy beach access versus the north. But anyway, here's some of my personal investments right here. I see that on the map, and I love Fort Morgan. I've invested pretty heavily in the area, but all these areas are great. So Fort Morgan is different in many ways. One of the differences is the beaches are pet friendly. So the numbers that I've seen that are the best numbers I've seen in Fort Morgan are pet friendly rentals. You don't see as much of a difference in Orange Beach and Gulf Shores for the pet friendly rentals, but in Fort Morgan, I have noticed a pretty big difference from those who are going pet friendly versus not going pet friendly. This right here by the Wildlife Refuge is the only beach access that is not pet friendly in Fort Morgan. But as you go down, there's beach accesses that are pet friendly. The main one is over on Cortez right here. Anyway, another difference in Fort Morgan is that you're not going to see nearly as many condo complexes. It's much more of a laid back feel and vibe. There never will be high-rise condos developed other than the ones that are here. In particular, the Beach Club has some high-rise condos. There's height restrictions now in Fort Morgan, so they're kind of trying to keep it low key. And a lot of people love that. And people that come to Fort Morgan tend to want to come back. It's, you can get anybody in any of these areas, but it's mostly family friendly and more laid back stays in the Fort Morgan area. There are a few restaurants in Fort Morgan, and the Beach Club has like a bar restaurant area. Sassy Bass has several restaurants. Tacky Jack's is up here on the bay side, over this way, all the way to the west. Now, they are also building Jesse's restaurant, and sorry if I'm moving too fast on this map, but they're also building Jesse's restaurant, which is supposed to be one of the best restaurants in the area. There's one in Magnolia Springs I haven't tried yet, but everybody raves about it. And they're building one in Fort Morgan, so I'm pretty pumped about that on the bay side. Now, the Rookery, there's plenty of good communities here to invest in. The Rookery is one of the few that is on the bay side, but you don't have bay access. But even these can produce pretty good numbers for the price point. But I'm kind of getting sidetracked a little bit. So Fort Morgan, even as far west as you can go. Some people are concerned because you're a little far away from the main attractions of Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. But even as far west as you can go, I've seen some amazing numbers. One of my good, really close friends and clients has bought with me on Boykin, which is right here on this street. And just to throw out a little bit of what Fort Morgan can do, their property is not a first tier, second tier. Is right off of Fort Morgan Road, a 3-1, less than 900 square feet, and he hit 97K gross last year, and he's on pace to hit similar numbers, slight drop off this year. Now, he is an amazing manager. He's doing a really good job, and he fixed it up really nice for this house, less than 900 square feet. Of course, as you get closer to the beach, the numbers do go up, and the more bedrooms you have are going to affect that as well, until you get to the first tier houses, which will always have the highest numbers of any properties here. So anyway, that's a little bit about Fort Morgan. One thing to look out for in Fort Morgan that you don't have to really think about in Gulf Shores or Orange Beach are what we call Cobra zones. Now, Cobra zones are, all that means is you're not able to get private, or you're not able to get insured by FEMA, so they don't back the flood insurance. So it's not an AE, VE, or X. You have to get private flood insurance, which can be significantly higher cost than FEMA-backed flood insurance. But really quickly, I'll point out this area. There's an area, Morgantown, which is all in a flood zone, and I've closed a lot of properties there. It's all in a Cobra zone, and all my clients have been very happy with their numbers here. So as long as the numbers work and you factor it in, I'm not saying that being in a Cobra zone is a deal breaker, but it's just something to be aware of. But anyway, that's just kind of an overview of the area. Another thing, if you ever want to check out some of what Gulf Shores has to offer, if you just type in gulfshores.com and just kind of go around on this website, it kind of goes over some of the attractions and everything it has to offer. So I do recommend checking gulfshores.com out as well. But anyway, that's just kind of an overview of the area.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. Really appreciate that. So I think Luke and I are going to start it off with some questions while we wait for some questions to start rolling in the chat. So that one of my main questions you already hit was, if you want to, I really like Fort Morgan. That's my favorite area of Gulf Shores. It's just a little quieter, not as many condos. So the beaches are a little less crowded than areas that have a lot of condos, but the pet friendly things. So I understand that since Fort Morgan is the only pet friendly beach, why a pet friendly property would do better. Do you recommend that you be pet friendly all the time? Like, what if I want to buy there and I'm the queen of bringing home rescue dogs and want to take them everywhere with me, but I don't trust everybody else in the way they take care of their dogs, and are they going to tear up my house? So can you do all right in Fort Morgan without having it be pet friendly?
Well, so that's a good question, and I do have past clients who aren't going pet friendly, and they're doing well. But I will say that I would recommend to go pet friendly, because I look at everything from just a numbers perspective, and you will hit higher numbers in Fort Morgan being pet friendly. Another thing is you do get pet fees, pet deposits. So it's you have a lot of extra to cover a lot of damage that could happen. And a lot of the houses in Fort Morgan have kind of have been pet, they've been made to be pet friendly. So, not a lot of carpet, and, with LVP and everything. All my properties are pet friendly, and I haven't seen any issues with it. And I'm not saying you have to be by any stretch of the imagination, but to hit the highest numbers in Fort Morgan, I would recommend it.
Cool. And Luke, which you guys know Luke, but I'll introduce him anyway. So Luke is our head of education here at the Short-Term Shop. Do you introduce yourself really fast?
Hey, everybody, I'm Luke. I run the education and management side of things at the shop, and I look forward to having you in one of my classes in the near future.
Yeah. So Jonathan, let's talk about your investments in the area, because you have some pretty cool stuff going on. Tell us about it.
Okay, so this investment is not going to be one that I can. It's not as easy to repeat as some of the others that I've closed here for clients. So basically, I worked on it for a year or so. I bought a house on a street in Fort Morgan. I found out before I even bought the house, it kind of was a little bit of a roll of the dice because an a gentleman who had been doing it a long time and he was kind of ready to get out, and I found out that he owned 5 houses and an RV park on on Mobile Bay. And so the house, we closed on the house that was on the same street, one of the only house he didn't own, and built a good relationship with him. Finally came up with a number that worked for both of us. And it's extensive renovation. So currently we are renovating several of the houses. There's a couple that are currently being rented as well. The RV park, another challenge, which is fun. Really good numbers on that as well. But they're septic. We're putting in sewage, very expensive. Putting in high-speed fiber and a lot of stuff. But the numbers are really good for what it is. I don't normally recommend to invest on the bay side because everything on the Gulf side, especially walkable to the beach, is going to be hit much higher numbers. But if you get it for the right price on the bay side, they do rent well also. You just won't have the same ADR as you will on the Gulf side.
Cool. So let's talk about condos for a minute, because that's like a really, really cool deal that probably not very many, if any, of our listeners are going to be able to repeat. That might be the only deal like that in all of Gulf Shores. Let's talk about condos, because I know there are a lot of condos in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. Are those good investments, or should people stick to single families?
Well, I was honestly about to go all in and get a condo at the same time. I got the RV park, and I did have to pull back because of all the renovations, and I still wish I had the condo. But anyway, I think condos are great investments. They're just way different than houses. You have to do a lot more due diligence with condos, in my opinion, than houses. And the reason being is that with houses, you have to make sure it's structurally sound, get your inspection, make sure there's no red flags from a short-term rental perspective, and the location's good, of course. You have to do all that with a condo, plus look at the HOA. I like to personally talk to the HOA board and get my clients in touch with somebody on the board. And the reason being is because of assessments. That's the big word with condos. It's the big thing to be looking out for. Now, assessments come in many forms. You can have recurring assessments for insurance premium increases. You can have damage assessments from any kind of damage or maintenance assessments, and those can be pretty large. Now, most condos do their best to make the budget to where they don't have to, because everybody on the board is also an owner in the complex, and they have to pay everything that everybody else has to pay. So it's not something that they just do without much thought, as long as it's managed well. But long story short, as long as the HOA is managed properly, and there's many condos here, even a lot of non-warrantable condos, which I can go get into that a little bit, there are amazing condos that will hit really good numbers. And then there's others that are not. I mean, just like anything else, that because of the way the HOA is managed, it makes it not a good investment.
Sorry, stuck on mute. Yeah, so I think a lot of people get scared of condos because, like, in metro areas, you kind of want to stay away from condos because most of the people in the condo development live there and they can vote out short-term rentals really easily. But this isn't an area where you really have to deal with that, right?
Oh, no, not at all. In fact, the only type of restriction I've ever on the Gulf side, now as you get kind of north, there's some condos on the bays, and that can be a little different there. But as long as you're on the Gulf side, the only thing I've ever seen as far as restrictions are 3-day minimums, 3-night minimums on only about 2 complexes out of all the condo docs I've read. So it's definitely not common to even have a 3-night minimum or any type of restrictions, because most of the condo owners here are not full-time residents in the condos that live in condos, and most of them do. Even if they own it as a second home, they are renting it when they're not there. So I don't see that often at all.
Gotcha. We've got a few questions rolling in. So Steven says, is all of Fort Morgan STR friendly, or are there small pockets that are not?
So Fort Morgan, hey, how's it going? Fort Morgan as a whole is STR friendly. The only time you'll run into places that aren't are HOA restrictions. It's nothing from governmental restrictions, but HOA, Bay Gardens is one, and Windmill. I mean, that's not there. A few other spots that aren't, but it's very uncommon to be restricted in Fort Morgan.
Awesome. Awesome. And if you're going to buy a condo, do you think Gulf Shores or, and sorry, I switched back to condos without announcing that. Gulf Shores or Orange Beach, if you're going to buy a condo, which is better, or are they kind of the same?
Well, very similar numbers. It really, when you're looking at condos, it's not, there's condos even in Fort Morgan at the Beach Club that do well, and others. So it's more about, when I look at condos, I'm looking at, first of all, a first tier condo, meaning direct Gulf front, is going to normally outproduce any second tier or beyond condo. What kind of views does it have? That directly affects your ADR and your occupancy and all your numbers, because they're easier to market and they're more desirable. In the slow season, people are going to want to get the deals on the ones with the views versus the others that are looking at a parking lot. And then the amenities. So to answer your question, it really, Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, not a huge difference, but it does matter on a per complex basis. So there's some complexes that will hit way different numbers than one next door to another complex because of their amenities. They may have a pool and an indoor pool and lazy river. It gets kind of crazy with some of the amenities they have. So that's what I really look for. But as far as area, as long as you're first tier and comparing apples to apples, they're going to be pretty similar.
Awesome. We've got a few more questions. Can you talk about price points for single family houses across the three areas?
Sure. So there are some houses now. It also, everything in this market does depend on proximity to the beach. So when you hear me throw out first tier a lot, and I know I explained it, but again, you're owning part of the beach when you're first tier. So that is by far the most valuable property. Even if the house wasn't there, the beach itself, that property is incredibly valuable. So those right there are going to start out, depending on location. Right now I'm seeing 1.2 for something that needs work and 1.5 for pretty turnkey on up for a first tier. If you're talking about anything, and it drastically decreases as you go back from the Gulf front. So you have, there's new development community, new construction communities even in the 700s right now for 3 bedrooms, some 4-bedroom new construction, gold fortified, meaning your insurance will be very low in the 800s for 4 bedrooms. That'll hit some really good numbers with great amenities. Resales, Fort Morgan, you're seeing some in the 7s and 8s as well and you may see some in the 6s that possibly need a little work. And right now is a really good time to negotiate. So there's some properties that are priced a little high for the current environment that I'm able to get some pretty good reductions on and make the terms very appealing to buyers right now. So you can get some pretty good deals at the current moment, better than a few months ago.
You have a number of fans just saying hello to you in the chat.
Oh, hey, everybody. Awesome. Oh, hey, Ethan and Nick. Awesome.
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit about, and it's kind of like a secondary market to Gulf Shores, but Dauphin Island. So I found that area kind of interesting over the course of the years. I've never dug into it too much, but tell us a little bit about that.
It is an interesting market and island. So, and I forgot to bring that up on the map. So you can take a ferry from Fort Morgan over to Dauphin Island, or you can drive directly south from Mobile into Dauphin Island. Now, it's a cool area. It's very different from the peninsula that we call it, the areas I just talked about. And the reason it's different is it does have a very island vibe. There's not as much to do. You can golf cart around the whole island and, have a good time. There's really only one or two restaurants. There's not, there's a few cool things to do. The main concern, and the numbers are pretty good in Dauphin Island from, depending on if the property is running year round. And the reason I say that is because I've been under contract with several in Dauphin Island, and we had to pull out during due diligence, which is, part of the process, especially on the west end where the properties with the best views are. It's eroding pretty badly, which you're not seeing in Fort Morgan and Gulf Shores. And also in Gulf Shores, they do a lot of reclamation where they reclaim the beaches and they bring in sand. In Dauphin Island, they don't quite have the same tax revenue to do that. So they're doing it some, but it's just not to the same level. And especially on the west side, it is a barrier island, meaning that it is, it's a barrier to bad weather events. Hurricanes is the big thing people are concerned about. So any storm that comes in, there was one that caused a lot of water and sand to be all over especially the west side and into the central area of Dauphin Island. I live in Fort Morgan, and it was just a little bit of a rain to me. I didn't even know it was that bad in Dauphin Island until I got some reports. So long way of saying, I think there is potential there. I would personally avoid the west side. The north side of Dauphin Island, there's some development going on there that could be something good to look into because the much lower price points. Now, it's not going to hit the same numbers from what I've seen as Gulf Shores and Orange Beach or Fort Morgan, but for the price points, there still could be some good ones as long as we do a lot of due diligence on anything over there.
It looks like we're getting another Gulf Shores owner joining the call here shortly. Let's really quick before Tim gets all the way connected. Amy Canfield wants to know what you're seeing for price points in terms of single family houses.
Oh, yes. So single family, it just depends on where you're located, but there are some as low in the 600s, very rarely right now. Usually even new construction 700s. There's a development in the 700s. There's one in the 800s for brand new construction, well-built gold fortified houses. Resales, you're seeing somewhat similar price points there. And this is all non-first tier prices. Anything on the direct Gulf front will be more than likely 1.5 or so on up for houses.
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, Tim. Oh, you're muted.
Having some little difficulty here for some reason. my it's not showing up the way it usually does. Let me I'm gonna click off this and come back.
Okay. Let's see what else. What other questions do we have?
I want to talk about regulations for a minute.
Okay.
To my knowledge, the regulations in Gulf Shores area are pretty, as far as I know, is as good as they're going to get in the entire nation, really. And I think there's even parts of the area where you don't even have to get a business license. Not that getting a business license is a big deal, but it's just so short-term friendly that it's just not even required in a couple areas. I think that's a Fort Morgan area, and I think the taxes are a little lower out there in Fort Morgan. So Gulf Shores as a whole, the entire area, to my knowledge, is pretty regulation friendly. But talk on that for just a minute, and what areas are not, I suppose.
You're absolutely right on that, Luke. The Fort Morgan, you don't even have to have a license, and they've gone up with the lodging tax. It's gone up to 11% with all state taxes and everything, and county in Fort Morgan. And then in Orange Beach and Gulf Shores, it's in phases going, it's at 13 going up to 16% there. And as far as regulations are concerned, yes, Fort Morgan, no regulations except for HOA restricted regulations. And then Orange Beach is the most regulated, but there are the PUDs, the planned unit developments, that are exempt from those regulations, and there are new developments with that. And then Gulf Shores is 2nd Avenue and South. And personally, I love the way the regulations are because it keeps the residential side residential. All the residents here are happy with that. They love the money coming in from tourism because that goes back into infrastructure, great police department, the lowest crime I've ever seen. And they just invested all back into the cities. The schools are amazing. But anyway, I'm kind of getting sidetracked here. But yes, I love the way the regulations are. And I talk to the regulators quite often to see if there's any updates, and I don't ever see that changing.
All right, cool. Well, let's bring Tim in, our on-field correspondent here. Was he safe or not? I guess it's wrong.
Hello,
sport.
everybody. I don't quite have the same. I don't have the same shtick as Jonathan has there.
But you do own there. You got a couple of condos, and you're one of our. Just for everybody that doesn't know, you're one of our agents in the Smoky Mountains. Own properties in at least 3 states that I know of. So talk about your Gulf Shores condos compared to other markets.
Yeah, it's we love Gulf Shores. That's actually where we started our short-term rental career. We started there kind of actually before you guys were even down there. So we've been down there for a little while. We've got 2 little 1-bedroom condos side by side, about 4 blocks from the 59. So right by the Hangout, for those of you that may know something about Gulf Shores. They do fantastic. They are beachfront, and it's different than the Smokies. It's a different seasonality, and Jonathan touched on a lot of this. It's having Gulf front versus a row or 2 back changes the seasonality, especially on the small ones. Our little ones stay shockingly busy like year round, because people will come and sit in a condo, especially a small one, and stare at the ocean when they're not going to come down there and stare at the parking lot. But even when it's too cold to hang out outside or be on the beach, we get a lot of people that just come down. They want to get away from Michigan or wherever they are up north, not even just snowbirds. We get a lot of really October, November, December. I mean, all the way through February, we stay. The rates are definitely, you're not getting summer rates. Your rates are in the basement, but they do really well. I mean, our little condos are crushing it from a return standpoint. I mean, like just as good as the Smokies. It's different. You got to handle it differently, but they do great.
One more question there. Why condos? When you were looking, why not single family?
For me, it was point of entry. When we were starting out, we didn't have the money for a single family, and quite honestly, we didn't know what we were doing a little bit. We just kind of jumped in. That was kind of our first foray into jumping into this, and we got one, and we did a bit of research on HOAs and stuff like that. We'd been looking for a little while at condos in other areas, and the HOAs where we are very reasonable. It's like $350 a month for our HOA. And but that includes a lot. It includes your cable, includes your water, and includes your sewer. So the only utility we pay is our electric bill. And for that little, it's a 700 square foot condo. It's like, between $80 and $200 a month, depending on what time of year it is. So it's like, it's very reasonable, and they take care of the building and everything, so it's just it's easy. It's very easy to manage. There's massive infrastructure of people. We found, like with the HOAs, especially if you get in a small building, the HOAs are great. Another point of resource. You can call the HOA guy, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we got 15 handymen we use for that or whatever, and they'll send you a guy. So it's been good for us. We would like to have a single family down there. We just haven't. We got busy in the Smokies, kind of didn't go back. So. But
you live in the Smokies too. That's all.
We do live in the Smokies.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
Yep. So, but we go down there as often as we can. Hang out with Jonathan.
You need to come back.
Well, we're due. We're actually probably October, Jonathan. So get ready for us.
Oh, awesome.
Well, Tim, thanks for checking in with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just chilling out on Facebook watching, and here I am. I wasn't really prepared for this. So
we called you right in. Yeah. Back up. Quarterback. Let's go.
All right.
So I think, guys, we've gone over a lot of the market specific stuff in terms of Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, Fort Morgan. So I think a lot of people, I almost, and Jonathan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. So just like the Emerald Coast is like a regional, drivable, nice beach market, so is Gulf Shores. But a lot of people are like, oh, well, I guess since I can't get something in Destin right now, I'm going to scoot over to Gulf Shores. Like Gulf Shores is somehow the B team, but I really do not agree with that. I kind of, even though they're not the same market, basically everything from Panama City all the way to the Gulf Shores market is like one big market almost. So, you know, growing up in the Southeast, every summer when you go to the beach, you're either going to like the Destin, Panama City area or you're going to Gulf Shores. It's not that one is better than the other or people would choose one over the other. It's just like, which one are we going to this year? It's kind of all the same in terms of the people. You know, I'm the demographic. I grew up being the demographic that goes to these places. And so I just wanted to kind of explain to everybody that's really the same thing. So it's really just a question of like buying where the deal is. And yeah, that's about all I got. Do you have, oh, hey, we have a couple of questions. First one, 11% hospitality tax. Is that paid by the guest?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would guess that that's probably sales and hospitality combined, and that's being taken care of by the platform. Again, just guessing here. You do want to check, make sure all your ducks are in a row when it comes to taxes. We definitely want to keep the tax man happy. But yes, all that, of course, taxes, we're always going to pass those through to the guests. But my guess is that's probably sales and occupancy, hospitality rolled in together there.
That's right.
Your sales tax is relatively low. Yeah. What is it in Alabama?
That is at, I'd have to double check on that.
How could you not know that? How do you not?
I don't know. I don't know what the sales tax is in Florida.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Do you know?
6 something.
Where we
yeah,
live?
six,
See,
six
you
and
don't know
change.
either.
Yeah, 6 and change. Well, in Tennessee, it's almost 10. So that's a big
Yeah,
difference.
I knew what it was there, but I don't know
Yeah.
here.
I charge a lot of people sales tax. I should know it, but I can't think of it.
And the lodging tax, is that the same in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach and Fort Morgan, or is it lower in Fort Morgan?
Gulf Shores and Orange Beach are the same, and they're going up 1% each year till it hits that 16% total for everything. And Fort Morgan is lower at 11 because it's not in the city of Gulf Shores, so it avoids the city tax part of it.
Is it a completely different city? Do I have a Fort Morgan, Alabama address?
No, it'll still say Gulf Shores. It's just not within the city limits.
Okay. So it's like in the county.
Awesome.
That's right.
Cool.
Awesome. And we have a few snowbirds questions in the chat, but y'all, we're going to do an entire separate Facebook Live on snowbirds specifically and all the different markets. So we'll talk about that then. Jonathan, is there anything else before we go that you feel like we need to know or that we didn't hit on?
No, I think we all covered it well, and I'm so glad Tim hopped on. That was really helpful too. That's all I have, and I just really, I'm really happy to help anybody that has any questions about Gulf Shores.
Yeah, some of the most beautiful beaches in the country. The last question says, how do we find deals? The answer to that is you call Jonathan. And if you are not a short-term shop client already and you would like to be, email us at my hand's disappearing, agents@theshorttermshop.com to get connected with Jonathan and Gulf Shores or any of our other agents in any of our other 14 top vacation rental markets in the country. So thanks guys for being here. Thank you so much, Jonathan. That was very informative, and we will catch you guys later.